Buddy the dog, what are you doing? Don't run away from me. Come here. People like it when you start a video. So come say hello. We're gonna have a different kind of video today, and we're gonna get started right after this. Welcome back. If you haven't seen my videos before, I'm Ross the Oliver Man. And the other day, that Oliver guy and I were talking about different stuff, and he gave me an idea for a video to do, but I'm going to build up to that one. I'm going to start with a different one of the same type, and that is top 5 somethings, you know. But I thought to start with, let's do the top 5 tractors I have that are my favorite and why, I suppose. So let's get started on that. Now, it's not easy to narrow down when you've got multiple things what could be your favorite, but I am going to start out with this horse of a different color. In number 5 spot, I'm going to say this 2020 John Deere. This has been here since it was new, and it was by far Grandpa's favorite tractor because it was the first one he ever bought new. And I don't know, there was a time in my life when I absolutely hated this thing. A lot of it was because it was just totally wore out, and it came back from the Deere dealer, and there was a bunch of stuff that wasn't right on it after he paid a ton of money to have it overhauled, and that kind of, even as a kid, turned me off to, you know, the whole thing. But it sat in the shed here unmoved for a long time, maybe about 5-6 years ago, because the hydraulic pump had quit for the second or third time, and Grandpa was pretty well over it. He was so aggravated he was spending money on this and it wasn't able to do anything, and I wasn't really enthused about working on it because he didn't want to spend a lot of money on it, you know. And finally I thought, it's got to be fixed. Either it gets fixed, or why is it just sitting here going to pieces? Because it was basically useless with no hydraulics. I mean, it had power steering because it's got the separate pump, so you could pull a hay rake with it, and that was about it. And we had taken the loader off, and it was laying outside, and he had bought some, they're probably hanging right there. He bought those 2 pins, and he used those to clip the cylinder straight up, and that's how it was, just sitting here. And I told him, I said, I've had enough. I said, we're going to fix it or whatever. Well, we're going to fix it meant that Ross was going to pay for it and do all the work, and then Grandpa would get to use it at his leisure. And so that's how the agreement went. And I was fine with that as long as it ended up with me in the end, you know. I don't mind putting money into stuff that he could use as long as when he was gone, it was mine. So that's what happened. But I spent a ton of money on it back then, and I was just looking. What got me thinking about all this was a while ago, and I looked at this hour meter. That was 56.9 hours ago that I did a lot of that major work. Put on a new manifold. The other one was junk and busted, just kind of like that 1020 we worked on for the guy. It was busted up there. The big thing was the steering. The steering had so much slop in it growing up, you literally could go this far around before anything happened. And that's kind of unhandy when you're going down the road in 8th gear, wide open, because you didn't know where it was going to go, and he just refused to fix it. He said it was probably cost too much to fix, so we'll just live with it. Well, I'd had enough by that point, so I took the front axle out from underneath it, and I took it to a machine shop, and they set it up, and they bored out the hole where this yoke goes, and they put in, instead of like original, it had needle bearings. Well, it had long wore them out and oblonged that hole. So they machined it out and put a bushing in it, and so that was done. I bought a brand new fork, which there's several different variations. The first one was wrong, so I had to, you know, keep working until I found the right thing. Got a new fork, both new tie rods, new front rims and tires on that affair, these side screens. What else did I do at that time? The new tachometer, because it didn't work. Sending unit in the fuel tank. I think I put the last new one of those little jobbies on at that time too. And yeah, I don't remember what else. A new muffler I think I put on at that time. And a new hydraulic pump, because the hydraulics didn't work. So I put on a new hydraulic pump, and there we go. I spent a ton of money on it at that time. I mean, that was like a ton of money. I can't remember what it was exactly, but I was into it so far and determined to keep it. And so yeah, that's what we did. And then as we've seen this winter, I've kind of started using it every day to feed, which is not usually what I did in the winter, but it works so good at it. I'm kind of floored. We never did that before, and it works excellent. The new hydraulic pump does have more capacity than the old one, and I would say that that was probably why it couldn't lift, you know, as well as this one is doing now, and different things. But anyway, using it every day here and whatever, and making it a little better along the way, it has earned the number 5 spot in my top 5 favorites of things that I have. And yeah, it would be one of the very last ones to ever leave if that ever happened, just because of what it is. So I'm gonna say that that's number 5 in my favorites list of stuff. You know, also it's kind of set up unusually. Factory canopy, high utility, factory loader, and so it's the number 5 in my list. Consequently, this is not easy to do, to come up with 5 that I think are the top 5. And if you ask me tomorrow, maybe I'd change my mind. And part of it is because I have a lot of family tractors that were bought new in my family, so it's hard to narrow down, you know, what's the favorite. Because basically they're all my favorites, you know. Whichever one I'm on at the time is my favorite. And consequently, just walking through here, I just changed my mind, and I'm going to put this one at number 4. This tractor here turns out to be one of my favorites. It is such a nice original tractor, and when I bought it, I second guessed myself. I thought I paid too much for this thing. I mean, it didn't look like this. It had that ugly cab on it. The paint was faded. It had a bent up muffler, didn't run. And I thought, what did I do? I could have probably found a better one later, but I don't think so. I think this was a very good buy. It's been the, I don't know, one of the driving actors in this YouTube thing, because it's been here since I started YouTube. It came right at that same time, and yeah, we've made it into what it is pretty well on camera. And I don't know, I like to drive it. It's a nice size. These 55 series tractors, I love them. I love the styling. I love how they handle. And yeah, so I mean, what a shocker. There's going to be more 55 series in this list, because they're just about the best of what they made before they started getting into electronics. This basic design was the same all the way through, whites and all that kind of stuff. And the very nice original. And like I said, it's just a handy size. It runs so smooth and quiet. It is going to need in its future an engine overhaul, I'd say. It's got a lot of blow-by, but boy, I mean, it's done everything I've asked of it and more. And I don't know, it turned out very nice. I'm happy with it, and it's going to get the number 4 spot in this list, just because of, I don't know, the originality of it. It's just so nice. I've said that like 15 times by now, but it is. I don't know how to put that into words. Maybe it doesn't come through on the camera, but it's definitely worth what I paid for it. I can't remember. I want to say it was like $4,500, and then with the buyer's premium and all that other nonsense, it was like $4,800 and something. And then of course we had to go down and get it from down south. But to get it running, all I had to do is have the injection pump rebuilt and put on that high torque starter, and it fired right up. So anyway, number 4 spot, 55 series, 1755, and there's still more things we need to do to it to make it perfect, but I'm gonna say that that's number 4 in the list. And like I say, I have no plan. I'm just walking around picking these out. I kind of had an idea in my mind what I thought was gonna be my list, but looking at them kind of changes my mind on some. But we're gonna go over here for the next one. All right, what number are we up to? 3? 1755 was 4. So this one's gonna be number 3. Oliver 1365. This has been very featured on this channel. I mean, it was put back from nothing. And like I said, because of this, I have had, I don't know, I jumped in both feet to these Fiats because of this tractor. And I probably have more Fiat Oliver videos than anybody else on the internet. But 1365, that came from a local dairy farm, bought it new from our dealer. I traded painting a tractor for it, and then it sat here for, what did I say, 11 years in pieces. And several years ago we found a better motor, put that together, and just started slapping stuff on it as we, you know, went to. And after looking at it, you know, you think utility tractor, whatever. But after using it, I love this little thing. I mean, it is amazing how much power it has and the stuff it can do. I mean, it's got remote hydraulics, 3-point hitch, power steering, little diesel that runs forever on fuel. And it continues to impress me, I guess I should say, whatever we do with it. And that's kind of the same thing the original owner said too. People would come and help them on the dairy farm, and they'd say, take that thing and pull the silage wagon, and they'd be like, that thing won't pull that. And oh yeah, it will. I mean, it's amazing what this little thing can do. And I don't know how many of these I've had by now. What, 3 1365s at one time, and then a 1355, and then now a 1250 and a 1450. And I don't know. I have the Fiat fever, I guess, but this tractor is going to be the number 3 because I just really like it. I mean, I think they kind of grow on you. They're kind of cute, and yeah, I mean, what can I say? It's definitely a keeper. It's been a good one so far for the stuff we've done, and we're going to have to do a little more work on it in the future to make it that much better. The steering box, I think, has left the chat. It's getting progressively harder to steer. And like today, it might be totally locked up. I don't know. But when I do that there, nothing's happening down here. And that's a problem. So luckily I have a parts tractor, and we might just swap box for box, and hopefully that'll fix our problem. Maybe we'll take that other one apart first to make sure it's good. But nonetheless, that's just because it's, you know, been well used and whatever. That doesn't change my affection for it. It was a basket case. It was dead and brought back to life now. So anyway, I'm going to call this number 3 on the list of favorite tractors that I have to use and whatever. I guess we should specify whether it's owning or using, but that's pretty well the same thing, I guess. But we're going to give this the number 3 spot. It narrowly edged out that one. That's a cute little feller too, but it's not as handy to drive. I think that when they were buying these foreign tractors and they started with those, the Fiat is so much more better of a tractor than those. Those are solidly built little tractors, but the hydraulic system is kind of complicated with the draft setup, and I don't know, it's just not quite as refined of a tractor, I don't think, as this. I do like it, but the little 1365, you can't go wrong with one of these. If you have a chance to own one Fiat, this would be the winner. A 1365 or a 1370, even a 1355 would be okay, but the 1365 and 1370 are kind of the later. If you get the later ones that are the later, I can't remember which Fiat they were, like the 640 Fiat, but anyway. I'm going to say number 3 on my top 5 favorites list is 1365. All right, coming in at number 2, I'm going to say the 1855. This was the first one of this size that I had, and it was another one that was a basket case. There might be some correlation in my brain to how much work I've had to do to something to make it my favorite. You know, once you've had it pretty well down to the way it was born, you kind of have invested a lot of yourself into it, and maybe that's what, to me, makes them my favorite. But I like the 1855. People rag on the 1855s. They ruined Oliver this and that. What ruined them was people expecting more out of them than what they were. They were a 98 horsepower tractor, not 172 by the time you maxed out the pump and ran it wide open past rated speed, and then it flew apart and you blamed it on the factory. No. 1855, this has been a good one. I mean, I built it pretty well myself. I built it in the shop when I worked there with the, you know, of course there were other guys there to give advice if there was something that I didn't know or questioned what I thought at the time. But yeah, I mean, I've been in it. I've been all the way through this tractor, and yeah, it's different than it was when it was born too. It's got fender tanks on it, consequently off of a 50 series tractor because they got 2 headlight buckets. But I kind of like that. That makes it mine, you know. It's different than other 1855s, but I do like the 1855, and again, much like the 1755, which is on the list, this hydraulic system and setup makes them just a dream to drive. They are so much nicer, and I don't know what to say. I mean, they're probably ahead of their time, I guess would be the word I would use. But 1855 is the number 2. It almost made the number 1, but I can't quite give it the number 1. And you'll see in a minute. Number 1 is over here, friends. It doesn't look like much right now because it's been apart for over a year. But the 1655 Grandpa bought new is the number 1 favorite of stuff I got. It's also consequently probably the last one that would ever leave if anything happened to me. But I really like this tractor. I grew up on this tractor. It's a nice, handy size. And what can I say? I mean, it's been here since before me, so I grew up on it every day. I mean, I know all about it too. I've been about all through it. We've been in the transmission, rear end, motor, everything on it that it ever needed, I've been into. So if you don't recall, it blew a head gasket and started missing the last time we used it in the field. And then after pulling it apart, I could see that it had scored some of the sleeves, not horribly, but enough that I decided it's getting new. It's getting an in-frame overhaul. So I've got all the new stuff. I just got the rods back the other day. And so we are ready for attempting to put this back together. And the head had a bunch of cracks in it. He worked on that. It's got some surface rust on now. I got to clean it all up again, unfortunately. It just took a while, waiting on parts and waiting on machine work. So I got the rods back. I got all the sleeves. I don't have the sleeves popped out. We have to do that. But I'm not fitting new sleeves into a block in below freezing temperatures. That's not a good idea. So we're going to wait till it gets warm, and then we're going to work on this again. But top 5 favorite tractors, I would say this is number 1. And yeah, we're going to get it going again good, and someday maybe we'll get a really fancy body shop paint job on it. This paint job wasn't terrible, but it's starting to give out on us. So like I said, as I started as a little kid painting, each one got progressively better And that was the last one I spent a lot of time working on, and then the motor went south on it, so kind of soured me on restoring really nicely. But so now I just try to get them running and make them the green color, and then worry about the fancy paint later. Work out all the kinks on them to where we can use them and play with them, and then we'll make them showroom quality maybe sometime before I die. But anyway, 1655 has the #1 spot on my list of favorite tractors I own. And like I said, ask me tomorrow, maybe the list will change. You never know. It's kind of, they're all my favorite. Whichever one I'm on at the time is what they are. You know, other honorable mentions would have been the 1650. It almost was in the #4 spot. But then walking by that 1755, I thought, you know, I really like this tractor, so it moved up. But that makes like, what, 4 out of 5 are 55 series tractors, you know. So that should be also, I guess, a testament to how nice they are to operate. And the hydraul shift does it for me. I love the hydraul shift. That was an excellent invention. It gave you partial power shift, 3 speeds on the go. You could run it all day in any range. And that's something that a lot of the other manufacturers didn't have, because they were meant to, like, you shift down, get through your tough spot, and then put it back up and direct and go. These you could run wherever you wanted all day long. And I don't know, that just is, it's so handy in the field, you know, especially planting. You can just drop it down on the in-row turn, then upshift and do whatever you have to do. So no doubt that the 55 series tractors kind of have the high place in my heart, I guess, because, and that's also what was around when I was a kid, you know. A lot of these still working, and then whites, which also had the hydraulic shift. But that is neither here nor there, so I'm gonna say that's my list. Agree or disagree, that's up to you, I suppose. But for me today, that's gonna be my top 5 tractors that I own, that I think are my favorites. But it's like asking you which is your favorite child, you know. You can't really pick a favorite. Some days you might like others more than other ones, but they're all your favorites. So anyway, we're gonna leave this here. I don't know if this was interesting or not video, but YouTube certainly likes the top 5 or top 10 favorite somethings as a category. So we're gonna see how well this video does. Maybe it'll travel far and wide and spread our name throughout the land. But that's where I'm going to leave it today. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.